So that's a very important question. It sounds like an easy question, but it's an extremely important question because a lot of people, especially post-pandemic, when they're afraid that pricing for an acquisition is going to go above the asking price and everyone's in such a hurry to buy things, they skip over some important details. And those important details are as follows. You clearly want to know the environmental situation there, and not just at your property. You need to know what's surrounding your property. You need to know as much as the groundwater beneath your property, which is pretty far down in some places, but what direction is it flowing? Because you might have a gas station, it could be a quarter of a mile up the road, but it's on right where your building's going to be, but it's directly north and the water is coming down the south. And you never know what that groundwater has in it, because if it does have some suspicious, hazardous material or anything like that, and you're going to build a multifamily property, you have to be very careful about potential liability in the future. So people need to understand what the ground is, what the soil is, what's made up, what was on the property before whatever structure is there. So you have to go all the way back in history to see what was at that property and all the surrounding properties, which is why more than others, I visit every single property during my due diligence period. To me, that's extremely important. I don't trust anyone else to go see it for me because after 30 years, I know what to look for. And there are a lot of sellers that won't provide you with an existing environmental report, or they might give you one from 20 years ago when they acquired the property and never did anything since. So that's important. And then the other one that's extremely important is a structural engineering report. And again, most people say, oh yeah, we always get that. No, the lender does require it, but by the time you're already speaking to your lenders, you're already in an agreement with the seller. So for me, I spend the extra money and I'll spend a couple of $1,000s on an engineering report, and I'll spend a couple of $1,000s on an environmental report. Because by the time I'm ready to circle a property, I know pretty much where I am financially with that property and what it's going to look like and what my IRRs are going to look like. So when I go to visit that property, I've already done that. So I'm already at phase 2 by looking at those two important factors. And that is environmental and structural. And when I say structural, it's every building or anything that was on that land going back as far as you can go. So those are the two things that I think that a lot of buyers miss when they're looking at investing, not necessarily before they close, but when they're looking at investing in a property. Another thing is, and there's nothing prohibiting you other than that the seller will tell you, please don't speak to any of the tenants or anyone here because they don't know about it. The employees don't know about it. But I will tell you that if I don't go, sometimes I send my sons to go, and like they want to go rent a unit, and they'll find out, and they'll walk around and they'll speak to some of the residents. You also want to look at all the cars if it's a multifamily property. During the day, during Monday through Friday, you want to go through there a couple of times. And if there's so many cars there, then you have some tenancy issues because there's a good probability that there's a bunch of unemployed people that live there. But speaking with a resident or a couple of residents is also a very important factor. Even for whatever company you're working for, if you're looking at a property on their behalf, it is great to speak to people just to get a feel.